when people see packaging, whether they realize it or not, they judge the product inside of it based on the package. And you don't have to look any further than the grocery store to realize that. We equate the quality of the product to the quality of the packaging.
One of the fastest ways to elevate the perceived value of your product is with good branding and good packaging. And if you're wondering how to pull it off on a budget, or you're ready to really invest in some great custom packaging, you are going to love my guest on the show today. Hey there, it's Tracy Matthews. I'm the Chief Visionary Officer of Flourish and Thrive Academy and the host of the Thrive by Design podcast. And I help jewelry business owners launch, grow, and scale successful 5, 6, and 7-figure jewelry brands using my methodology called the desired brand effect. And I'm excited to have a very special guest here today, Kelley Kempe of Hidden Path Creative. She has a long time experience in branding and packaging for some big brands, and now she helps smaller businesses just like yours develop custom packaging for their business. Now, we're gonna dive into the episode really shortly, but before I dive in, I just wanna remind you that if you're enjoying the jewelry business advice that you're getting over here on this channel, make sure that you subscribe to our channel and that you click that little notification bell so that you're notified the next time I release a new video. All right, let's dive into this interview with Kelley Kempe of Hidden Path Creative. Well, packaging and branding obviously are two core features of the desired brand effect. And I'm super excited to have a special guest on the show today, Kelley Kempe. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited for us to chat more about branding and packaging today.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you about this. You know, I first saw you getting a shout out from the Ultimate Product Party Babes, and I was messaging you and I'm like, we need to get you on the podcast because we haven't had a discussion about packaging in a really, really long time. So I'm excited to have you here. Why don't you give me a little bit of a background of your history and how you kind of got into packaging design?
Sure. So I went to college for graphic design and took a packaging course probably my junior year and just absolutely fell in love with it. Was excited about the idea of taking graphics, wrapping them around something three-dimensional that so many people would see in a store and want to bring home.
Oh, yeah.
That for me, yeah. That cinched it for me. And I was like, well, this is what I would like to do with my career. So after college, I joined a really small team at Dick's Sporting Goods doing brand identity and packaging for their private brand products. Worked there for probably about 8 years. Then joined the team at Kohl's doing their private brand identity and packaging. And along that journey, working for 2 different big national retailers, I got to design packaging for all sorts of products. So think golf balls, golf gloves, hang tags for clothing. And then when I got to Kohl's,
Cool.
yeah, so cool. Golf balls were really fun because you got to do all of the fun foils and embellishments and all of those things that are just a designer's dream.
Yeah.
And then at Kohl's, I got to do packaging for all the things I really love to buy, like candles and home decor items and, the stuff that you have to buy, like sheets and cookware and stuff. But by creating packaging for so many different types of products, I got to learn so many different things about the products because the packaging has to tell that story
Right.
and sell the product. And so I was at Kohl's for about 10 years when the pandemic hit. And at that time I was trying to figure out, what my next move was. And I'm at Kohl's, and Kohl's was closed down because they didn't sell any essential products. They didn't sell food. They didn't sell cleaning materials. So they were closed. And at that time I took on a couple freelance clients, and working with small businesses is very different than
I know, right?
yeah.
You don't have a team. Here
You
it's
don't have a
just you.
team. Nope, just me. But the people that are starting small product businesses have such passion behind what they're building. And I know that it can be really intimidating jumping, when you're building a product to then work with a service provider in packaging and branding and all of these different things. And I saw this opportunity that there were so many people starting product businesses that needed help with packaging. I was like, is a light bulb for me. I was like, oh, this is something that I can really help a lot of people and a lot of businesses with. So a couple freelance clients turned into a couple more, and now I have a business where I get to do that every day, and it's really fun.
That's awesome. So what are you doing now? Like you have a business that's primarily just works with smaller independent brands, correct? So
Yes.
what are some of the fun projects you're getting to work on?
Oh, so like last week alone, I did packaging for a brand that sells decorative matches. I did,
Oh, cool.
yeah, I did packaging for a brand that does handmade soaps and lotions and bath bombs and steamers, and packaging for a jewelry brand.
Oh, awesome.
Yes.
Okay,
So
cool.
like I work a lot with either like small startup businesses or makers, people that have been building their products, maybe selling their products in person, and are making that transition to more of the wholesale where the packaging really needs to stand on its own and sell the product.
So are you partnering with like different like manufacturers who create the packaging too?
So
So
this
you're
is a
hooking
really
people up
good,
with that because I'm
I
I'm
am
curious
hooking
about
people
that.
up with that. Yes. So that's actually one of the newer offerings in my business, because that's definitely a challenge for every
Hmm.
business. One of the first questions I get asked a lot of times is like, do you know who can print this for me? So I'm trying to help bridge that gap with the services where I I do offer that consulting with, okay, let's go through the product. I'll make a recommendation of what you need to package it, and
Hmm.
then I'll give you a list of suppliers that you could order this from.
That's cool. Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, I know a lot of great jewelry manufacturers and packaging, but I think sometimes, there's so many other options out there. And a lot of these packaging and resources, I guess I should say, I feel like a lot of vendors who are like old school, they don't really have a very robust online presence. And so it's like
No.
hard to find them.
Yes, it is. It definitely is. It's hard to find them. It's hard to know who to trust. It's hard to know what you need, and then it's hard to know if you're getting a fair price.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Because yeah, I don't know. I mean, years and years ago when I had my production line, we were in the process of creating like beautiful boxes for our gold line. And then 2008 happened. And so we put that on hold because we were going to have to like ship in 5,000 units and the expense and all this stuff. And then I was like, am I going to keep this business open or not? So it was an
Mhm.
interesting time. But I remember I was like digging through some old stuff when I was moving a few years later and I found these boxes. I'm like, these were so rad. Like I was like so excited about them. And, it's really hard, I feel like, to find those innovative types of packaging creators because a lot of them, they just want to, especially for jewelry, it's like a square box with a cotton insert and like nothing cool about it, or a card that holds a small piece of jewelry that maybe goes inside a box or goes inside an envelope. And so finding that like unique packaging, I feel like is like one of the things that can really elevate perceived value for a brand. Do you want
Oh,
to talk about that a little bit? Like,
it
how do you think it really elevates the perceived value?
I love this because packaging totally elevates perceived value. So so there's this statistic that I've been using in my marketing, which is 72% of people are influenced to buy a product because of the packaging. And I always like to follow this up with, those are just the people that admit to being influenced
Yeah.
by the packaging. And so, when people see packaging, whether they realize it or not, they judge the product inside of it based on the package. And you don't have to look any further than the grocery store
Hmm.
to realize that. So, everybody goes grocery shopping, and while it's very different than jewelry, you walk in and you go to buy like your regular brand of cereal or whatever. If the one that you usually buy is in the front and it looks like the corners dinged up and smashed in, what do? You take that box, you pick it up, you pick up the one behind it that looks clean and undented, and you buy it because that package that's dented up is, you immediately think, oh, there's something wrong with the product inside of it.
Hmm.
And that's what we think of every time we see packaging, whether we realize it or not, that we
Right.
equate the quality of the product to the quality of the packaging.
It's
And
fascinating,
Mhm.
actually, because it could be like a $10,000 piece inside of a crappy box.
Right.
Well, it's funny. So I ship through this company that they do the insurance through Brinks because my jewelry pieces are like, $5,000 and up. So they're expensive. They
Mhm.
recommend putting your stuff in bad packaging on purpose so that if it gets lost in transit, that it's not obvious that it's a very expensive piece of jewelry.
Right. So your shipping box should be discreet. It shouldn't have any
Yeah.
branding on it so
But
that
even
no.
inside, because sometimes the box is open. This is like literally a strategy. They're like, you put a box inside a box. You don't want it to look super great. I
Yeah.
mean, we put it in a nice jewelry box.
Yes.
But it's not like a big, display.
Totally. Yeah, I totally get that. I think I ordered my wedding band from like Brilliant Earth, and they,
Yeah.
it's the same strategy. It's like you get 3 boxes with them. You get your
Yeah.
shipping box, you get the inner box, which was plain, but a very nice material. And that's
Yeah.
the thing. Like you can either go with like, you can elevate the material and do the design kind of plain, or use a basic material and give it a little bit of design. And then inside the actual jewelry box was like
They're
wood and
nice.
engraved, and it so, but I also love that because it's like it's the experience and the surprise,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Every layer
Hmm.
tells part of that story. And I think jewelry's interesting that way. It's like you just never want to, especially when you're shipping it, you don't want to tip off how valuable
Oh,
it
for
is.
sure. But that unboxing experience is really powerful. So if you can create it in a hidden way where you're still like shipping securely, this is for people shipping expensive stuff. If your pieces are less than $1,000, it's not as big of a deal. But like,
Correct.
I
Correct.
mean, the
But
packaging is still very important. That's not what I'm saying. But just the how you're concealing it isn't as important.
right. Well, and it's a choice, right? Like that's still a design choice
Yes.
in my mind,
I need.
and a thoughtful choice at that. And that's what customers like. That's what customers react to. That's
Yeah.
that's that's what makes them feel valued, and like their purchase was valued by the brand.
Hmm.
It's because there was something considered when they put the box within the box, and that every time they like open a layer, there's another surprise there, because whether you're ordering something as a gift or you're just buying it for yourself, like it's so fun to
It
like
is.
get mail. And that
One of my favorite brands that ships incredible packaging, I'm like losing my train of thought right now, is a company called Box Fox. Have you ever heard of this brand?
yes. Oh, I've ordered gifts from there. They're phenomenal.
It's so good. And so,
Mhm.
like, I love gifting from there because they have this beautiful main box that they ship out of, and they put like that confetti stuff on the inside, and everything's like packaged in there. In fact, my ads team, shout out to the ads girls who I've been working with like on and off for years. They always ship like when you start up with them, like, or like for holidays and stuff, they ship you like a brand new box. And I love it. That's how I got tipped off about them. They have great packaging. And I actually, the sign of good packaging is that you want to keep it after,
Yes. Mhm. You feel
right?
bad throwing it away.
Well, yeah, or
Yeah,
or like it's like good enough to like use as a storage box.
totally. Mhm.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
love that. So we talked a little bit about perceived value and how it can elevate the value, and then we also talked about a little bit more about how you can create a great unboxing experience. Why is it important to continue having like great packaging for your overall brand as a business owner? Like, what are some of the things that we need to be thinking about?
Sure. So, I mean, at the very base of it, it's recognition and memorability.
Hmm.
Because as you're talking about, like when you have great packaging and and somebody doesn't want to throw it away, they're going to see it. So like let's take that box fox, for
Yeah.
example. You're probably keeping that box, you're storing stuff in it. I've got some storage boxes here, but I've even got like little boxes inside that are like other people's packaging. Well, every time you go to open that storage box, you're seeing that brand again and you're reminded of that brand.
Yeah.
So you're and it takes time to build recognition, right? So especially if somebody gets your product as a gift and they get it in your branded package. And so every time they go in their jewelry box and pick it up, they're reminded of your brand. And then the next time that they're going to think of a gift, they're like, and it's the same thing. Like you think of like, oh, what would make a great gift? What's maybe something that I liked? Oh, I have that box that I've seen over and over again. The more somebody sees your
Hmm.
brand, the more top of mind you become.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you're not just investing in your packaging, you're investing in building your brand awareness and then potentially future sales.
That's so true. How important do you think sustainability is right now in packaging? I'm gonna tell you a quick
Go for it.
story. So there's a big push in the jewelry industry right now for sustainable, ethical, like all the things, like supply chain, all that stuff. So I was speaking with a retailer. This was a couple years ago, and she's like, one of the biggest turnoffs for me is like, I'm a like ecological person. When
Mhm.
a jewelry designer sends me this like wasteful packaging of like all the thing, or like I guess the best way to put it would be like a media kit and like a line sheets and all this stuff, like in a
Mm.
packaged folder with a lot of like waste, like extra waste. So that also translates into like what you're developing for your brand when it comes to packaging. So how
Mhm.
important is sustainability, do you think, in packaging these days? And like what would you say to someone who wants to create sustainable packaging? Like they want to create packaging that creates brand recognition, but they want to also do good to the environment.
I love this question. It's also not like a one size fits all answer. So the place that I like to start, which is opposite of where a lot of people start, is end use or end of life cycle
Hmm.
with the package.
Oh.
Because you can you can design something that's like made of recycled materials and, FSC certified or less packaging, but ultimately what is the customer going to do with it?
Mm.
And so I personally like to think of it that way. Like what is going to happen with the packaging after your customer purchases this?
Hmm.
So are you is your packaging recyclable or reusable? Or and how are you communicating that to your
Oh.
customers?
Yeah, and can be like I've even seen some packaging that can be composted.
Correct. Yes. You've seen
That's
things that are
crazy.
composted, biodegradable, things like that. And so I I like to think about it that way because there are things that cue sustainability, like craft materials. I've worked with brands where we use that brown paperboard craft because
Hmm.
visually it cues sustainability. But depending on what kind of like inks or finishes, it may or may not be recyclable. So that's why I like to think about that end of use. So think about how customers are going to use it. And, like one of the trends that I love right now is refillable.
Oh,
So, yeah.
what would that be
So,
for? Well, you're going to tell me. What would that be for?
yes. So, like cosmetics,
Oh,
candles.
yeah.
Yeah. So I love that. And then I also, the other thing that we're seeing in kind of like a similar place, because, those are kind of two of the areas that have a lot of waste right now because they're consumable products is when
Yeah.
brand,
I just
yeah.
noticed that with like Charlotte Tilbury. I'm like holding my lipstick right now. This is a
Mhm.
different brand, but like Charlotte Tilbury, you can take the lipstick out and like put a new thing in.
Yeah.
So you don't throw like, I mean, they make beautiful
Right.
containers. So it's like, I kind of want to keep it like, the cute,
And
like,
it's you want to keep it
yeah.
and it's beautiful and it's durable because it has to be durable to protect the product that's inside of it. So the fact that now we're making those things reusable, then they have a higher value beyond that
Exactly.
because they are reusable, they're not throwaway. So I'm loving looking at it more from that perspective. So the refillable is great. The other thing is when brands start their own recycle programs.
Oh, how does that work? Let's hear about that.
So the brands that are doing this are like, recycle, we'll send you a label and you send it back to us. And think about that. You could do that in jewelry. You
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
you could design a beautiful box that has a hinge that has a beautiful finish. And I know that that's something that people love to keep, but you could offer some sort of incentive for somebody to send it back and then you can use it again. And, you might do something where like there's some sort of incentive either way for
Yeah, like
that.
a loyalty, almost like you get loyalty points or something like that towards a new product, or actually it works as
Right.
a sales, a sales tool.
Mhm. Yeah, it totally works as a sales tool, and it totally works as a loyalty tool. So that's how I love to think about it, and I think we're gonna see a lot more of that reusable, refillable, moving towards like these recycling programs as opposed to, or in addition to, I should say, starting with the recyclable, compostable materials.
Yeah, because for me, like, I don't know, I'm not a super huge fan of like craft stuff. So like,
Right.
I mean, it
Not everybody
definitely
is.
denotes like a lower price point. It feels like a lower price point
Mhm.
product. So I love the
Especially in
idea
the
of like,
jewelry.
what?
I said especially in the jewelry
Oh, yes.
segment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's funny because I used to have those like natural color, like jute bags for my men's line because I wanted it to look rustic. But I mean, I still have some boxes somewhere of my old men's line where they were like wood boxes that would open. They were cool. They were very expensive though. I think they were like $2 to $5 each, but
Oh, I believe
uh,
that.
yeah, a lot. Okay, so packaging, I do believe also that packaging as a branding tool is going to help you sell more products. We kind of touched
Totally.
on that before. Like, how do you think that it in like an online world where people are visually inspired by things that they see, how would you recommend using like your packaging as part of a sales tool?
I mean, I personally think packaging should be included in your product photography. I don't think it has to be in every product photo, but I do think that you should have at least one product photo where you're showing your packaging. And I think it works. It works in a lot of ways, but one of the key ways is that it builds trust. Somebody
Mm-hmm.
gets to see how it's arriving before it arrives. So they trust it's going to be packaged well. They trust that it's going to arrive intact. And they're also seeing, particularly when you're doing something like jewelry, how giftable the product is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're seeing ahead of time that, like, okay, the box is beautiful. I just have to like wrap it up or get a beautiful bag for it. Versus if I'm not sure what it's going to come in, or then it comes in like a little plastic bag or something, it's like, oh, okay, now I've got to go find something sturdy to put this in
Mm-hmm.
to make it feel special. I also have seen that when like stores and boutiques are purchasing products, they're looking at the packaging. When you're looking at things beyond jewelry, because I do work with, a lot of like skincare, soaps,
Mm-hmm.
cosmetics, and just other products that aren't like, that need a little bit more explanation. That packaging, by adding your branding, adding your messaging, having visuals that help tell your story, that sells your products to customers. So it immediately like multiplies the amount of customers that you can
Yeah.
talk to. And it takes some work off of the stores, the boutiques, the stockists' plate. When they know that like your packaging is selling your products, they can just buy the products, put them out on the shelf, and then your products walk out the door and they're like, great, reorder.
I love that. So
Mhm.
what do you know what the so Robin and I, my co-founder, who was highly involved in like our wholesale strategy when we had our wholesale programs and stuff like that. We used to always talk about this. Like sometimes the stores don't like packaging with sometimes the stores don't like packaging, sometimes they really do. But then on another level, like what is the trend right now with having like your website and stuff on your packaging? Or is that something that you want to not put on it?
This is a great question. And again, there's like not a one size fits all. I will say that, like, personally, from a business strategy standpoint, I think every brand should be leading with their brand and putting
Yeah.
their website on there to drive sales back to their brand. I'm also hearing that like some boutiques don't like that at all. And this may be a very unpopular opinion, but I think it's short sighted
Yeah.
only because of the fact that like there are boutiques that I've shopped at and I found products that I love. And it's like when you're traveling. And so you can go to their website, but they're not necessarily selling all of their products on their website. So like
Yeah.
I still want to be able to like repurchase things. And so I personally think that boutiques should be looking at it as a partnership with the brands instead
Hmm.
of trying to like white label all of the brand's products, which is essentially what they're doing when
Hmm.
they're asking brands to not lead with their brand or not include their websites on there. I think that that should be like a premium for the boutiques that do that.
It's so funny though, because like these days, anyone can Google anything and find stuff. So like, what's the big deal? I,
True. Yeah,
I, I think the big thing, this is like the biggest issue, is when the brand undersells the retailer.
I would agree with that. Yeah. Like you
Yeah.
kind of have to have that like price consistency across the board.
Hmm.
Or
Where, yeah. So like if you're selling candles or if you're selling jewelry, like you need to make sure that what you're selling to retail on your website is the highest like consistent markup that would be sold in a store. Like, and if a store goes over your retail markup, then that's fine. That's their prerogative. But if you aren't doing the right markup and you're underselling your retailers, like that's also another reason why a lot of them don't want websites on the jewelry because
ah,
they feel, yeah. Anyway,
that's okay. That's an interesting point, and I totally understand that from the perspective of the stores and the boutiques. Hmm.
it's interesting because sometimes, especially with fine jewelry, because I don't know, the pricing is always like, I don't want to say questionable, but there's a lot of like levers you can pull to be able to get the right markup. And what a lot of jewelry business owners don't understand, especially if they're starting out and they're unexperienced in wholesale, is that a lot of these business owners, they have very high rent, they have employees, they have people that they have to pay. And so they have to mark it up a certain
Mhm.
amount in order to get margin out of that. And if you're already underpricing and you're not understanding what that retail markup needs to be, then you're
Mhm.
actually competing with stores that might be going against your ability to get placed in stores, which
Right.
now we're going in a tangent for pricing, but it's all tied together, I feel like.
It is. It is all
Yeah.
tied together. And as you're saying that, I'm thinking back to my retail days when, when I was at Kohl's and they're carrying Nike and Under Armour and
Mhm.
Apple. And I remember working on like signage for some of those brands. And the the question was always about price. And the thing is that like when you're selling a premium product, when you hold the line on price and the price is the same, whether they're buying it directly from you or they're
Mhm.
buying it from a store, that creates a premium presence and perception in the market by your customer. And that perception also equates to trust and brand awareness. So it's totally all tied together. And oh, this is interesting. I think this is gonna formulate some new ideas and thoughts. But
I love it.
yeah,
I just have a few more questions for you. Like one of
go
them
for
is
it.
like, are you noticing any trends in packaging right now that my listeners should know about?
Ooh, yes. Yes. And I love looking for trends. I kind of try and keep like a running
Yeah.
list. I feel like I just came out of the holiday season, so I was looking at those trends and something I keep seeing, and I'm curious as to how it's going to start translating into the jewelry market and other markets, but particularly in like the skincare and beauty realm, I'm starting to see like bundles that include
Mhm.
on the outside of the package illustrations of the packaging that's inside them.
Oh,
So, yeah. So rather than going with like photos of like, so like think of it like a skincare bundle, like Honest has one, and then I've seen it in some other places, where instead of it's like, if they put together like their three best sellers, instead of doing photos of those three best sellers or a box with windows, which both of those were kind of like the previous traditional way to like package a bundle. This is an illustration, like an artful illustration of like the bottle with the label that's the product inside. And I'm really intrigued by that trend and like how it's
Mm.
turning the packaging into another art form, but
Ooh,
just, and it just gives this other like avenue for like brand expression through visuals.
yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, so one more question. How do you, so if you're a startup and you know you need packaging, but you're on a budget and you're trying to figure out, like, how do I get this going? Like, how do you balance the cost of packaging when you're just getting started? Like, how much should people, like, should they just go to some place where they can get like a foil stamp of their logo on a stock jewelry box? Or like, what is the direction that you think that people should go when they're just starting out to balance out the cost?
Yeah. So what I typically recommend is when you're just starting out and you need to balance that cost, put the the financial investment into the brand design
Mm-hmm.
and the visual design.
Yep.
Choose a stock format or box that you can then customize with your branding and your design. So if it is a jewelry box with that foil stamp with a label. And I say that because like, and especially in jewelry, but just in like a lot, like there's so many times I talk to somebody who's like just at the beginning and they're like, I want this beautiful soft touch box, or I saw this thing with this magnet and this really incredible closure and something else. And they're all the bells and whistles.
Mm-hmm.
And they're fun and they're beautiful and they talk to quality, but they don't create brand awareness for your brand. And that's
Right.
kind of where you have to start. So that's why I say, like, start with those foundations, start with your brand design, start with the visual design, and apply that to a stock, because just by doing that, you can make that stock package look custom.
Yeah.
And then once you've built up, and then once you're increasing the volume that you're doing, because that's when you're able to, like, packaging is most expensive when you're buying the minimum order quantity. The more that you're buying, the less it will cost
Yeah.
because the per piece price will come down. So wait until you're able to order larger quantities, and then that's when I recommend people go into like the custom development, the higher end materials, the custom setup boxes, the magnets, the fancy
Yeah.
materials.
The cool stuff. Like the stuff
Yes.
that I was developing before, before
Yes.
I closed my business. Yeah. That's awesome. Okay. So now, I guess you kind of covered my next question, which is going to be like, if you're not starting out and you're going in like, and you want to get custom packaging, how could someone come and work with you?
Oh, yes. Let's talk about that. So I offer custom pulled together packages, but one of the things that I started doing this year that people are loving is packaging pronto. So I do a VIP day where we design up to 3 packages for your brand. We can add on me doing packaging sourcing and customization of formats as well. I refer all of my clients to a handful of trusted suppliers that I've worked with, that my clients have ordered from, that have amazing customer service. So my website is hiddenpathcreative.com and my Instagram is Hidden Path Creative. So if you're interested in learning more, you can jump to the website, or I'm always happy to chat in the DMs on Instagram.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here today, Kelley.
Of course. Thank you for having me. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah. I hope you enjoyed the show today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Now, if you want to go and party with us, with other product business owners, Kelley and I are going to be speaking at the Ultimate Product Party that is in California in May. So if you'd like to grab a ticket to that event, it's going to be epic. Head on over to flourishthriveacademy.com/UPP. Use the discount code UPPTracy, which you can see on the screen here, for $25 off your ticket. Let's do this. We'll see you there.